How's it going, guys? Today I'm going to show you what it's like to drive the world's fastest production car, the Koenigsegg Agera RS. Under the hood is a 5-liter twin turbocharged V8, and thanks to its 1 megawatt power upgrade, this car makes 1,360 horsepower on E85 and goes on to a top speed, it's written on the car, of 277.9 miles an hour, making this the exact car named Ruthie the fastest homologated production car in the entire world. Now, in case you couldn't read the signature, how cool is this? The world's coolest license plate looks like it's actually real, 277 miles an hour. The Agera program actually started all the way back in 2010, which is pretty insane to think about. All the way up to 2015, they made the Agera R, and the Agera S. And then from 2015 to 2018, using learnings from the 1-to-1 program, they made 25 Agera RSs with much more extreme aero and on-track performance. Compared to the standard Agera, we can see we've got a massive front splitter right there, some nice dive planes on the side. How cool is this? The windshield wiper fluid comes out of this carbon fiber piece right there with the Koenigsegg logo. Coming around to the side, excellent side skirt, and then look at this hydraulically actuated rear wing that, combined with all of the other downforce elements, makes 1,000 pounds of downforce at 155 miles an hour. It's honestly such a breathtaking car to look at. You can stare at each individual element of this car and just get lost in all the details. Like, look at the vent work over the rear fenders. We're used to seeing in cars like a GT3 RS, the front fender vents, but ones at the rear, that is a sight to see. In fact, when the Agera R came out, it was my all-time favorite car. I remember seeing videos of an Agera R in white and red, driving around Monaco and thinking that is the ultimate car. And this takes things to an entirely new level. Now, a lot of cars have carbon wheels these days, but these carbon wheels are hollow. Yes, that's right. These spokes are hollow pieces of carbon fiber, which is absolutely insane. Now, to hop inside of the Agera RS, we actually have a hidden button underneath here. Go ahead and click that, pull up on the door, and they extend outwards. They are called dihedral synchro helix doors, and they just look so darn cool. I mean, come on. Who needs butterfly doors or gull wing doors? These are the ultimate, and they have one of the coolest logos I've ever seen, or warning labels, I should say, on the door itself. And it warns you, don't park closer than 16 inches to the curb, otherwise you could open your door into the curb, and I imagine that would be quite expensive. Now, let's go ahead and hop inside. Massive carbon fiber door sill. Right here is the release lever for the engine compartment. Hopping inside the Koenigsegg Agera RS now, and literally every single material is either leather, carbon fiber, or metal. There isn't plastic anywhere. We've got paddles for the 7-speed transmission that I'll talk more about in a bit. It does have 2 clutches, but it's not your traditional dual clutch automatic. Koenigsegg came out with a really cool technology called nano holes, where they poke these almost microscopic holes into the aluminum to allow the LEDs to pop through. Christian didn't want to put any plastic inside the car. Obviously, plastic is transparent, so you can have lights behind it, but in order to make it out of metal, they had to do something pretty special. For a car that started production in 2015, it has a breathtaking instrument cluster. So darn cool. Now, coming out to the steering wheel, on the steering wheel, we've got a front lift system right here, phone call button, volume for the stereo. This thing actually has Apple CarPlay. Coming to the main screen here, to go to the home page, you click on the Koenigsegg logo. We've got some climate controls down here. If you go to media, you have Apple CarPlay. If we go to seat and mirror, you can actually control the seats from the screen. So if I click on the back portion, this will tilt it. And if I click on the butt portion, it'll slide it forward and backwards. Now, if we go to car setup, we can choose between wet mode, that would be insane driving this in the snow, normal, racetrack, and you can turn on and off traction control and electronic stability control. Now, interestingly, it actually has a manual handbrake and one of the tiniest cup holders I have ever seen. All right, guys, let's take this out for a drive. To fire her up, foot on the brake. And on she goes. Man, this thing is loud. Manual handbrake. Pull the right paddle to engage first gear, and we are following behind Tim Cad in the Regera. Pretty cool convoy in an Agera RS and a Regera. I'm excited for this. All right, on the road in the Agera RS. following behind Tim Cad in the Regera. What a convoy. We've got the front lift up now to get out of an incline. The front lift button is on the right side of the steering wheel, and it raises the car an impressive amount. And I'm actually really surprised, just driving this thing slowly, how manageable and easy it is to drive, and how smooth the shifts are given the very advanced transmission. Once we get out onto the road, I can't wait to talk about the transmission, because it's a 7-speed with 2 clutches, but it's not a double clutch transmission in the conventional sense that you would be used to. It uses really, really cool engineering to save weight and provide insanely fast shifts. The electronically controlled E-differential is also insane. So right now we've got the front lift up button on the right side of the steering wheel, and it is super easy to approach these without worrying about damaging this super expensive car. Gonna get the engine and tires warmed up for a bit first. But I mean, immediately, I don't even know if you can hear me. You notice how loud this car is. And I think what makes these cars some of my favorite in the world, if not my all-time favorite, is how fun it is to drive just at 2 miles an hour. A lot of hypercars like a LaFerrari or a 918 are fun at the limit, but just putting around town, it feels like a 458 or it feels like a GT3 RS. This feels like you're going 277.9 miles an hour when you're stationary. Now let's see, I am really hot, so let's use the air conditioning controls here. Actually works super well. These vents are insane. Everything inside the interior is either carbon fiber or metal. You'll notice down here you've got those micro holes, those nano holes, allowing the light to pierce through this aluminum plate, and you can actually see them. Otherwise, they'd have to make it out of plastic. They didn't want to do that, so they came up with a very innovative solution. I really like the very, very advanced digital instrument cluster as well, particularly for the time period, considering the Agera RS came out 10 years ago, which is pretty insane to think about. Oh my gosh. That's 20% throttle maybe, and it's already unbelievably ferocious. And getting to see that gorgeous Regera in front of me is really an unbelievable experience. What's amazing to me actually is when you get to a stoplight or a stop sign, it's actually relatively quiet at idle, but the second you start going, this thing is so loud. It's actually unbelievable. Wow, the shifts are quick. So it's a 7-speed gearbox with 2 clutches in it. The first clutch is in front of the gearbox, in between the gearbox and the engine, and that's used to change gears, like a traditional single clutch. But there's actually a second clutch, which is a wet clutch. The first one I referred to is a dry clutch. And that wet clutch is sitting in oil, and that actually lowers the input shaft speed to 0 so that the shifts can happen quicker and more smoothly. So it basically pre-synchronizes the gears to allow for really fast upshifts and downshifts, but it's much, much lighter and smaller than a double clutch gearbox. At 180 pounds, this is actually the lightest hypercar gearbox ever. And man, the sounds this thing makes, just unbelievable. So spectacular about Koenigsegg's is how manageable the power is. This car weighs 3,000 pounds and makes 1,360 horsepower on E85, a couple hundred less on 91 octane. For a rear-wheel drive car, you'd think it'd be impossible to get any traction whatsoever. So the fact that you can floor it in second gear like that, and it puts the power down to the ground using really, really advanced traction control software, but it also uses a really cool electronic differential. So inside the diff, there's this piston. The piston is hydraulically actuated. And essentially, the piston can open and close, changing the amount of lock of the rear diff. So if you're in a corner, it can open up a little bit less lock so that you can more easily maneuver around the corner. but then if you have snap oversteer or in a straight line, it locks the diff using that piston, which helps a lot with traction management. Honestly, I figured this car would be scarier to drive. I drove Passen's car, the Naraya. That was right-hand drive out in England. Oh man, that must have been back in 2018. And it was pretty intimidating to drive because it was right-hand drive. But driving this thing around town, it's super easy. It doesn't feel like a normal car because when you look literally anywhere, it's unbelievably extreme. I mean, the door handles are Koenigsegg logos. You've got this almost fighter jet tank style, super small front windshield, really cool quilting here. You've got a nice sunroof as well. But in terms of how easy it is to drive, picture driving a new GT3 RS. It's just much more angry, much more aggressive, even just sitting here. And that's what makes it fun. The GT3 RS is a brilliant car, incredible handling, but if you're not going full out, I first actually didn't love the way it felt until I really pushed it. This, we haven't pushed it at all. Oh, those backfires. And even without pushing it whatsoever, it's it's gotta be in my top 3 favorite cars I've ever driven. This list is getting really hard. I mean, the F50 held that position for a long time, then I drove the CC850 and that manual was insane, but this is just so violent, and the gearbox is a lot better than I remember. Like, a lot better. It's relatively smooth around town, and it just absolutely rips at higher speeds. And I am quite curious what that Regera is like to drive, so maybe in a future video, we can take that thing out as well. Man, huge thanks to Tim Cad, Ancillary Studios, for making this possible. This is an unbelievable experience, so make sure to follow Tim and Ancillary Studios. I'll have a link to that down in the description below, because it is an unbelievable experience getting to do something like this. As I was driving over, I almost had to pinch myself, thinking back when I started Vehicle Virgins back in 2013 on YouTube, actually 2011 on a written website where I did written reviews, and the thought of being able to drive a car like this, and even more so in a convoy like this, is truly incredible, and I'm so thankful for it. I've gotten a lot of cool hypercar content recently, but I'm not getting jaded. This stuff is just way too cool. I'm in love with this car. The steering is nice and heavy. It turns just instantly. I mean, the inputs are so minor, and you can feel the car wants to jut around. We don't have a super twisty road right here to really push this thing through its paces, but it's not just a straight line car. It's also very, very competent around the track, hence the extra aero in the front. That massive rear wing producing nearly 1,000 pounds of downforce at just 155 miles an hour. So if we go over to car setup, we can change between wet and snow, normal mode, and racetrack. And then you can also change the traction control and electronic stability control. I've heard in racetrack mode, it gets a little low. So to save the priceless front splitter from touching anything, I'm gonna spare it and put it in normal mode. But my gosh, for a normal mode, this is the most ridiculous experience ever. Now, obviously, one glaring thing you notice is you can't see behind you whatsoever. There's not even a rear view mirror in front of me, which is a very unique experience for a car. But honestly, the side view mirrors provide so much visibility. I feel pretty comfortable in this thing. Pulling off into a nice park area to shoot some intro shots. I've got to give another huge thanks to the MAP 277 project for making this possible. This has seriously been one of the coolest driving experiences I have ever had. Tim is such a nice guy. And man, just hanging out driving Koenigsegg's, not a bad day at work. All of the sounds this car makes is just otherworldly. And I love the central mounted windshield wiper, reminiscent of old Le Mans cars. In fact, that and the tires are basically the only thing that Koenigsegg doesn't manufacture themselves. Man, because of the complexity of the gearbox, it would shift slower. But I completely agree with Christian. I think this shifts just as fast as a DCT, and obviously there's a serious weight advantage to having the gearbox set up this way, which is pretty darn cool. Wow, that guy just passed two priceless cars really quick. Another Tesla just blowing by. Hard to say the value of this thing. I mean, this is the world record car, so it's essentially priceless. So being able to pilot Ruthie, which has a funny origin. So all of the other final edition Koenigsegg's like Draken and Phoenix have names. So they were like, what are we gonna call this one? And they kind of jokingly, one of the guys came up with the name Ruthie, and everyone hated the name, and they're like, nope, that sticks. I honestly love the name. I mean, it's such like your Aunt Ruthie, but it's a world record 1,360 horsepower car, which is pretty darn funny. Man, the sound is just unbelievable. And when you turn on the turning indicators, this is pretty cool. So I'll do the right turning indicator. You have a little ghost appear in the side view mirror. And even the turning indicator stalks themselves, the actuation of the stalks is just so nice. Everything feels premium in this car. And the fact that it came out 10 years ago and it feels this modern and this well put together is really impressive. I honestly thought changing lanes in a priceless Koenigsegg would be scarier than it is, but it's not too bad, actually. What a car. You know, I'm actually surprised it's very hot out today. The air conditioning works really well in this thing. I know you'd expect, look, air conditioning works well in lower end cars, why wouldn't it work in this? But it works impressively so. Experience. Holy moly. This is what cars are all about. Putting a smile on your face no matter where you're going. And this might be the king of just raw driver involvement and enjoyment. I love this thing so damn much. Pops on upshift are just ballistic. The one thing I will say, because you don't have a rear view mirror and you can't really see behind you, if you are being pulled over by the police for going way too fast, which is quite easy to do in a 1,360 horsepower car, it'd probably take you a really long time to actually notice that.